movie nerds, and welcome back to Cinematic Sarcastic, podcast that talks all things movies and television. I'm Natalie, and I'm your host. On today's episode, we are going to talk about Dune Prophecy. Cue screeching noises. I'm so excited for this. Ever since HBO announced that they were going to do a spin-off Dune series, I have been counting the days, hours, minutes until the first episode hit, and it is finally here. I've watched this episode twice now just to kind of get a feel for what it is. For anyone who is not familiar with Dune Prophecy, this is a spin-off series of kind of the Dune novels. I am assuming that they are intending for this to be a spin-off. I am assuming that they are intending this to be a spin-off series of Villeneuve's movies as opposed to really spinning it off in a way that the books series goes. And I say that specifically because Travis Fimmel's character of Desmond Hart seems to be a very big character in this series. We'll get into it, but he is not a character that exists in the books, so we already are kind of pivoting from the book series in terms of the show. So for those of you not familiar with Dune Prophecy, this is taking place 10,000 years before the birth of Paul Atreides. So before the original Dune story ever starts, this is 10,000 years prior. And we do get kind of some idea of how everything has been set up, how things have been trapped in this kind of house system, like how the houses have controlled a lot of things. And this also really kind of explains some of the technology, quote unquote, that we see in Dune. So at the very beginning of Dune Prophecy, some of this might be spoilers, by the way, but I'm assuming that most anyone who is clicking on this is interested and has a somewhat idea or some knowledge of Dune and kind of where the world comes from. If not, skip this, watch at least the first episode of Dune Prophecy and then come back. But we see at the very beginning kind of this exposition dump, which I'm not a huge fan of exposition dumps. I do and don't understand why they've done it in the case of Dune Prophecy. They are really kind of coming out in a very short and simple way of talking about the jihad of the humans against the artificial intelligent machines, and so we kind of get this very brief glimpse of that battle, and we hear Valya Harkonnen kind of telling the story of how it's rumored that an Atreides is the one that kind of turned the tide of this battle and brought the humans to victory. And then, of course, her ancestor is the one who did not join the battle, and thus the House Harkonnen kind of becomes this shamed house and group and are exiled to a dead planet. I do really, really love Valya Harkonnen. I would have loved to have seen more of the battle between the thinking machines and the humans. I think they could have gone into that more, or at least set it up a little differently so we got a little bit more information, because one of the biggest questions that I am seeing on social media right now is why in 10,000 years, we don't have a difference in technology from Dune Prophecy to the Dune series. And I feel like a lot of people are missing that really is kind of the point of Dune. And so I think if they had set up Dune Prophecy a little bit differently and maybe put a little bit more time into that, into explaining that, and why the houses sort of outlawed a lot of these things and really took control and took power, and that is really the point of Paul Atreides in the future, to upset that dynamic and take control away from the emperor and from the houses and sort of start giving it back to the people that are under the thumb of these hierarchy houses, so to speak. So I do think that they could have spent more time there. I'm not a huge fan, let's say, of like the prequel books, so it doesn't really matter to me what they bring in from those novels. I am hoping, and this is just a personal hope, that they are steering the show a little bit closer to more towards the feel and kind of underlying look of Villeneuve's movies, and that maybe they will change some of the aspects of the story from the prequel books. I know, again, as I've mentioned, they've already sort of started doing that, because one of what appears to be a main character in Dune Prophecy does not exist in the books, and that is Desmond Hart, the soldier who has survived this encounter with not only an attack on Arrakis, but he also has survived an encounter with a worm. And we see him having some extraordinary powers that we are not sure the origin of or exactly what they entail at this point. And because he is a new character that is not in the books, I have no idea what's happening with his character at this point. All I know is that he appears to be able to set people on fire over long distances. So that's a little bit horrifying to me. I am very excited to see kind of where they go with his character and what all of that entails. But I do really love kind of getting this first look at the Bene Gesserit. I am really in love with Valia Harkonnen already. Like, clearly she is the type of woman that is willing to do literally anything to accomplish her goals, including murder, which I think is just kind of this interesting dynamic. I don't know, other than with Jessica, like, I don't know that we've seen too much of that sort of hard edge of the Bene Gesserit in any of the Dune movies before. Like, yes, we've kind of seen with the box and the needle and all of the poisoning and all of that stuff, but we haven't really seen what they can do and what they're capable of. And I'm hoping Dune Prophecy will give us some more of that, like the treacherousness and the manipulation and like kind of how everything gets started. We do get to see that Valia Harkonnen, at least in the show, is the one to develop the voice. And so it's cool to sort of see that come to fruition. I wish that they would explain some of that a little bit more, though, like flesh it out a little bit more so that we kind of understand where some of these things come from and how that works. I do know that the unreliance on technology, or this fear of technology, is where we get like the Mentats, the Spacing Guild, all of these things that are very human reliant was based around this idea that too much intelligent machinery or reliance on intelligent machinery is what got us to this very, very terrible place where we were being controlled. I say we as though I live in the Dune universe, but you understand what I'm saying, is like humans were being controlled by machines, essentially, is kind of where those prequel books went. So I am curious to kind of see the beginning of the birth of the Bene Gesserit and how those threads sort of entwine to get to the space where Jessica is going against them a little bit. And we do get Paul Atreides, despite the fact that that's not supposed to be the case. I do wonder in the show if they are looking to Travis Fimmel's character of Desmond to be this sort of early iteration of the Kwisatz Haderach. I'm not sure. He does seem to have some powers that we are not familiar with at this point, and that do sort of point to that to me, or point to him having some of that. But Paul Atreides, of course, was trained by his mother, who was a Bene Gesserit, and to our knowledge, Desmond is not that in any way, shape, or form. So it would seem that he would have training of a different sort, or that there is potentially something else going on there. I'm very curious to see like what that is and where that goes. I think that the first episode of the show definitely is one of those that is very similar to like the first episode of Silo, season 2, for instance, where there's not a ton going on. Like, it is sort of explaining things, setting things up in that first episode, which makes a lot of sense. But then it completely grabs you in the last, couple of minutes at the ending there. And this one definitely did, with what's going on with Desmond and what he has capabilities of doing. There is definitely something there that has completely hooked me. I want to know what's going on. I like a lot of the other characters at the same time, though. Like, I'm in it for the Harkonnen sisters. I enjoy them a lot. I enjoy the actresses that are playing them. I think Emily Watson and Olivia Williams are doing excellent jobs so far in this show. So I am definitely curious to see how this progresses. I'm irritated that HBO is going the same way with Dune Prophecy that Silo season 2 is, obviously, with us getting one episode a week. Let me binge, dang it. but I will love getting to sit down when the series is over and watching it all the way through, and then potentially watching the Dune movies, the Villeneuve Dune movies, straight after to kind of see if there are a lot of Easter eggs and things happening between the two. But I'm very excited to see where this one goes. I would love to know what you guys thought of the first episode of Dune Prophecy if you have watched it. Subscribe to join the Movie Nerd family, and I hope to see you in the next episode.